The world watched as Britain crowned a new king with everything it could muster: the pomp, the pageantry, clockwork precision, ancient ritual, tradition. The British Monarchy is the oldest functioning political institution. It is a little over 1,500 years old, which is why perhaps there's that question: is it still relevant? The answer was provided in the coronation itself. Did you count the number of heads of state, presidents, vice presidents, monarchs of other nations in attendance? So apart from the monarch's soft power, the UK still shines as a world power in this day and age where tensions and upheaval abound in so many parts of the globe. And from those so many parts of the globe too came immigrants, Filipinos among them, who now make up a multicultural, multiracial modern-day Britain. Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, Politics as usual. Our guest for tonight, the Ambassador of the United Kingdom to the Philippines, Laura Bofils. Good evening, Ambassador.
Good evening, Pia. Thank you for having me.
And thank you also for accepting our invitation. Ma'am, let's start with AUKUS, Australia, UK, US, China, West Philippine Sea, Taiwan, Russia, Ukraine, all together, because everything's happening all together. So this agreement that you, the UK, have with Australia and the United States, and what it means in the world today with, like I said, so many geopolitical forces in play. We have China flexing its muscle in what we call our West Philippine Sea. Taiwan, over Taiwan, we have the Russian invasion of and war with Ukraine. I had the Russian ambassador and the Australian ambassador a few weeks ago here at the show, and we spoke at great length about these. So tell us about how the United Kingdom is working within all these forces.
Sure. So the first thing to say perhaps, Pia, is that we're also a maritime power, right? So we really understand the fundamental importance of maritime law, international law, UNCLOS on the one hand, and we do really feel that we have a voice and a role to play in terms of maintaining peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific, and you mentioned the West Philippine Sea in particular. AUKUS is about working with partners to share technology, to play our part in maintaining that peace and stability in this part of the world. It is about sharing technology to ensure that the Indo-Pacific remains free, open, and that we can all work collectively in a sensible fashion. It is really quite important that we continue to build networks of different countries and allies and partners that are able to work together and play their part, because the more we do that and have different multilateral and minilateral groupings, the more we can contribute to lasting peace and security.
Mm-hmm. So keeping the sea lanes open and free, like you
Absolutely.
said, for everyone.
For everyone, exactly.
Mm-hmm. About Russia and Ukraine, the UK has been very vocal about it also. And I remember when the Russian ambassador wrote an opinion piece for a major daily here in the Philippines, there was an uproar, and there was reaction from the different embassies here in Manila about that.
I think I was the first one to actually speak out about that first article. In fact, there were two articles. It's really, really important that we get the facts straight and we do not allow disinformation to pollute our minds. In this instance, some of the things that were published were simply factually incorrect. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely fact that Russia invaded a sovereign country. It is against international law, against the UN Charter. It is a blatant violation of international law. International law is the scaffolding by which the international system holds together. Once we say it's okay that you can violate international law willy-nilly here or there, then there are no rules anymore. There's no terms, ways of codifying how we engage with each other, and then you get chaos. But also, we really need to stand up and speak out when things are simply not true. And I also think that the media have a responsibility not to publish untruths.
Mm-hmm. Unless, of course, Russia thinks that it was not invading a sovereign nation.
But it is a sovereign nation in as much as it is a member of the UN, and in as much as Russia is a member of the United Nations and has signed the UN Charter. So there's no two ways about it. They can try to spin things however they want. It is a violation of international law, and it was a sovereign state that they've invaded, and they're waging an incredibly aggressive war, killing tens of thousands of people and leading to all the economic consequences across the world that we've seen. So I think it's really important to be super clear who is responsible for all of this. We cannot dilly around and just be neutral about this. Neutrality is in effect taking sides in this instance with the oppressor.
A while ago you mentioned multilateral and minilateral relationships with different countries. So let's focus on UK, Philippines, and its multifaceted relationship. Tell us about it, including the 1.5 years in the 1760s that our islands were part of the British Empire.
That's right. That was a while back. So thankfully our relationship has changed radically, and we've got a growing relationship. So like many partners, we've had a diplomatic relationship with the Philippines for about 76, 77 years now. But we're growing. We're growing as an embassy. The types of issues we're working on are increasing, and we are both deepening our relationships and broadening it. So now we've traditionally done a lot by way of trade. By the way, our trade is back up to pre-pandemic levels and higher than ever before. We've done loads on climate and environment, given the Philippines' vulnerability, but loads also on economic security, and in particular, we're working together on energy security and renewable energy. We're working on cyber issues. We're working on maritime security, obviously. We're working on loads of issues that are of common interest, including, for example, peace and security in the BARM. So really, it's going from strength to strength, and a very exciting time for us to be working here.
Tell us more about that, peace and security in BARM, Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao.
So we have a big program of engagement in the Bangsamoro, which is about basically sharing our experience of building new parliaments in devolved administrations. So there's actually parallels in terms of how Manila engages with Cotabato in terms of with how London engages with our devolved administration in Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland. So we've done a lot of sharing of our of information. We've done a lot of coaching. And one of the advisors to our program is actually the First Minister of Scotland, previous First Minister of Scotland. So he's also able to share his experience of what it was like developing a new parliament, developing a new devolved administration, and how he navigated those relationships between Scotland and London. So it's very much about building the Parliament of the BARM, sharing experience, and institutional strengthening.
We're going to take a very quick break. Ambassador Bowfields will be right back. Stay tuned. This is Politics as Usual. Welcome back. This is Politics as Usual. Still with us is British Ambassador Laura Bowfields. Did I say that right, Laura?
You did. You did.
Bowfields. Ambassador, let's talk more about UK-Philippine relations. You wanted to say something more about health, education, and technology.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Pia. I mean, on science and technology, it's a big area of interest for us because as the UK, having left the European Union, we're really interested in developing our science and our technology capabilities. In particular, we're one of the biggest tech industries in the world. We've got $1 trillion tech industry, 145 tech unicorns. And so we're really keen to partner with tech companies in the Philippines to develop partnerships and to really ensure that we co-create and innovate together. So there's a lot of work going on in that space, and we've got London Tech Week coming up on the 12th of June, which is basically one of the biggest get-together of tech creatives from across the world to share their experience, to co-create, and also to discuss policies to safeguard and to promote tech in a safe way. So that's really exciting. And on health and education, I could not mention that in particular, given all the work that we've done together across our two countries during the pandemic, and more recently taking forward programming on pandemic preparedness, looking to the future, and sharing our experience, of course, of universal healthcare. There's a strong relationship between the UK's National Health Service and the Philippines, thinking about what's working, what are the lessons that we can share, and ensuring that it's a two-way lesson learning exercise is really important as well.
Well, speaking about the UK's National Health Service, of course, let's talk about Filipinos in the UK, among them nurses. We have a lot of Filipino nurses there. And the nurse who administered the world's first vaccine was a nurse of Filipino heritage, right, in the UK?
Nurse May Parson.
May Parson.
That's right, exactly. And she got the highest distinction that the Queen gave her just a few months before the Queen passed away to Nurse Parsons in recognition of her administering the first ever COVID vaccine. So that was a really, really special moment, and showing to the world that Filipino nurses have got the best malasakit and are really the best talent when it comes to nursing. Exactly.
And there are how many Filipinos in the UK, and what kind of jobs do they hold?
So a lot of them are in nursing. We've got about 30,000 people working as healthcare workers in the UK.
And many of them have been there for a long time or just newly immigrated?
So we've got people coming every year, and many of them have been there for a long time and have now got families in the UK and are settled in the UK and are really part of the fabric of our society. And many of them have been recognised, in fact, through some of our national honours and national honour systems that have been bestowed upon them. So I was just talking about Nurse May Parson, but in fact there were 2 Filipino nurses that work in the UK that were also honoured by being invited by His Majesty the King and Queen Camilla to their coronation. So they were in Westminster Abbey with 100 heads of state of government on Saturday. And I think that's really important in terms of signalling to the world that Filipino nurses matter and they are outstanding, but also showing it to the rest of the world that the King and Queen made a really special point of inviting people that are really contributing to their communities, that are frontline service delivery providers, and that they've invested also time and space in the Abbey, inviting people that are from charities and different walks of life.
Right. A very modern and very modern day also coronation.
It was.
But yeah, just and those 2 Filipinas, I remember people were reacting to photographs of them seen on social media, and people were saying, who are these 2 women wearing the traditional Filipino dress, the terno? And it was, apparently it was a matter of national pride.
It was.
We have 2 Pinoys, 2 Pinays there.
Yeah. And they looked beautiful and stunning.
Yes.
So I had the same reaction, I must admit, Pia, when I saw them with their butterfly wings pretty much at the front of the Abbey. I was delighted, obviously, and soon enough found out who they were. And so I think we all had the same reaction of great pride that the Philippines was front and center in the Abbey. Obviously, with President Marcos and the First Lady not too far in the Abbey as well. So a really special day for the UK-Philippines relationship.
Right. But it's not also just about Filipinos or Filipino immigrants, but this speaks to British society as a whole, multiracial, multicultural, multi-ethnic. Your Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and you have other members of cabinet, for example, people in government, who are of other heritage, right?
Absolutely. So absolutely, and so the Prime Minister is the first Prime Minister of Indian descent and practicing Hindu, and he was at the Abbey and he read a text from the Bible, right?
Yes.
So again, I think that's a really strong symbol of multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-faith society today. And you're right, so many members of our cabinet have parents coming from Africa or South Asia or other parts of the world, and we absolutely celebrate that. And I'm glad you pointed out that the coronation was also a demonstration of that. So it was a celebration of our history, our culture, and our tradition, but also a demonstration that we are a modern country looking to the world and looking to the future.
Yeah, and very modern to include leaders of different faiths, right?
Absolutely, and they had a role. You saw that they handed over some key items to the king, and then at the very end of the service, in unison, leaders of different faiths gave a declaration to the king together, which was, again, I think, very powerful.
But what a wonderful way to celebrate the coronation, because they, even in the coronation concert, there was an inclusion of a Filipino choir there, and that was quite a bit of a surprise also for those of us watching. Are those Pinoys? And
they were,
because we could see the Filipino attire.
Yeah.
Right. So the choir included not just the Filipino choir. You had an Indian choir also. so many.
That's right.
Representing what Britain is really
And
all
we
about
take
today.
such pride in that. And so you're absolutely right, P.S., that choir, that coronation choir, was 300 strong, but it actually included 18 amateur choirs from across the country. And one of them was this Filipino choir from Basingstoke that met 20-something years ago, and I think wanted to recreate a little bit of the Philippines in the UK by creating their choir in their church. And then they got a knock on the door or a call to say, do you want to put your name in the hat to be part of this coronation choir? They didn't really believe that was true. They thought it was a hoax.
Really?
They did put their name forward, and then they were selected amongst, as you can imagine, very, very many different applicants. And that's, again, a testament to the talent of the Filipino people in across the world, and in particular in this instance to their ability to sing and to sing well. So I think a great opportunity to rejoice and celebrate that.
And since we're both women, we have to say the coronation also was a testament to women. There was a woman in a very, very prominent role, but we're going to talk about that when we come back. More from our guest, Ambassador Lord Beaufils of the United Kingdom, when we return. This is Politics as Usual. You're still on Politics as Usual. We are on our final stretch. Ambassador Lord Beaufils of the United Kingdom is with us. Also, you refer to yourself as His Majesty's Ambassador to the
That's
Philippines, right?
That's
representing the British Monarchy. Well, I wanted to talk about Penny Mordaunt, the woman who was holding or carrying the sword of state for like an hour or two during the coronation. That was a big thing because she's the first woman ever to do that. Well, not that we have British coronations so often.
It was a wonderful thing, actually, Pierre, and it went virtual after the ceremony because she literally held that sword, which is, I think, just under 3 kilos, for 90 minutes. And apparently she had been working out and doing push-ups and all kinds of muscle work in preparation because it's really, really heavy. In fact, there was a journalist in the UK that tried to recreate it, holding some water for that 3 kilos worth for several minutes, and she really suffered. So she looked amazing. She was the first woman in the role carrying a symbol of strength. It was really, really powerful, and I think that's why she went virtual. It was a strong signal, again, of our modernity and the role that women now play in very traditional and very important roles.
Very traditional, very important roles. Like she's supposed to be the Lord President, what you call the Lord President of the Privy Council, a member of Parliament.
That's right.
Also, well, so let's end the show on this final stretch with talk about the coronation. So you have the pomp, the pageantry, precision, tradition, ritual, the monarchy, and the new reign of a new king. It was on display for everyone to see, and let's talk about how this is possible. You have a British monarchy that is 1,500 years old. It is the oldest political institution in the world, and it is still around. It has survived centuries already, but it's still there. It is still considered a global power. It is still considered a power, even if the monarch has what you call soft power. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I think it's still around because it's still an institution that's respected and that is needed and that plays a key role. So in this instance, we now have a king that's really quite a modern king, very interested in issues. We were just talking about diversity and inclusion, very interested in that. Very interested in environment and climate-related issues.
Right.
He was
in many ways
so
way ahead of his time,
very
warning
visionary.
us of what we are dealing with today, climate change.
He made his first speech on those issues in 1968, and then he coined terms like circular economy before anyone else did. So he was very much ahead of his time. But he's also really championing values of respect, championing partnership across countries that share values and that share his values of respect and liberty, and I think that's really important. So he is a unifying force within the UK because he works across these groups, across communities, supports a lot of young people and in particular disabled.
With the Prince's Trust.
Indeed, exactly, and he supports a lot of disadvantaged young people in particular. So that brings people together, gives them a sense of belonging and purpose in the UK. But he also plays a really constructive role internationally. He's a force for good on environment-related issues. He was, at the most recent COP, the climate change conference, not in a political role, but in the role of an international champion on some of these issues, that cares deeply about the future of our planet, that cares deeply about the role of the Commonwealth and beyond, countries coming together that share values and that can learn from each other. And I think that's definitely a force for good and something that's needed, which is why the monarchy is still around and why we're still so passionately supportive of this combination of culture, history, tradition, and modernity and forward-looking energy on the other hand.
And you could see that even way before the coronation, in his first overseas visit to Germany, right? People weren't expecting that kind of a welcome for him and for the Queen.
That's right, and his popularity is growing. It's really, really interesting to see that. People actually now have got to know him much better over the last 8 months, and he's really, he and his wife, Queen Camilla, are incredibly popular, and they're appreciated for what they stand for being actually quite humble, for being open to change and reform where appropriate and where needed. And I think, he's also such an experienced king. He's been around for many years learning the job, but also already engaging internationally with heads of state, heads of government, civil society organizations, climate champions from across the world. So I think he knows what he's doing. He's made it abundantly clear that he is committed to service in the UK, in the Commonwealth, with the realms and across the world. So yes, undoubtedly something to celebrate.
And that's what Justin Welby said also during the service in Westminster Abbey, that this is about service. Let's end, Ambassador, with what I had said earlier in the introduction about how the monarchy's soft power is seen. And we saw it in the coronation. When you talk about, people say, oh, is it still relevant? Yes, it is still relevant because of what we saw. All these heads of state descending upon London to attend the coronation.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, what other event attracts 100 heads of state and government in the same way? And I think that's why the Prime Minister tweeted just before the ceremony saying how proud of it we are. We are proud of all of those things. We're proud of what we stand for. We're proud of our place in the world. And I think the soft power that you were referring to is really second to none in that respect, and that's something that's also really, really powerful and quite frankly something that we are benefiting from internationally as well.
Final words, Ambassador?
Well, no, thank you so much for having me, Pierre. It's great to be here and great to have the opportunity to talk about the modern face of the monarchy and the great role that King Charles and his family will play here and across the world in the future.
Well, I should say maraming salamat and thank you
Maraming
to you,
salamat po.
Ambassador Laura Bowfields of the United Kingdom. Thank you, ma'am, for being here.
Thank you.
We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or the family reunion or in Viber groups and risk warfare, digital or otherwise. But we can talk about it here at this table on this show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. See you back here next Wednesday, 8 p.m.